This happened a few years ago when I was 32. I returned home to take care of my ailing father. Our family wasn't well liked in Charleston. Rumors of witchcraft swirled around our farmhouse. I thought I could help him and maybe bring some peace back to our name. The air smelled of mildew. The floorboards creaked beneath me as I sat with him in his dim room. He was fading, staring blankly at the wall. I feared each moment could be his last. One night, after I cared for him, I wandered into the parlor. I wanted something to do, anything to keep thoughts of losing him at bay. That's when I saw it, a stack of old crates shoved against the wall. Something inside me stirred, and I moved them aside. There it was, an old cellar door I'd never seen before. I felt a pull towards it, a mix of fear and curiosity. Maybe I should have left it alone, but I had to know. I pulled the door open, and the hinges groaned loudly. The air rushed out like a cold breath. I stepped inside, and the darkness swallowed me. I could hardly breathe. The cellar felt cramped and damp. As my eyes adjusted, I saw strange symbols carved into the walls. I froze, my fingers tracing one. It felt rough and jagged. I should have turned around, but a flicker of candlelight caught my eye. I hadn't brought anything in with me. My heart raced. I heard whispers, low and far away. Was it the wind or something darker? I hurried back upstairs. My father slumped in his chair, staring blankly at the wall. He looked different, almost as if he were somewhere else. I asked if he was all right, but he didn't reply. I felt ice run through me. The nights grew stranger after that. Candles flickered on their own. Shadows danced in the corners of the room. I felt like something was watching me, lurking just out of sight. Neighbors began to disappear, and I noticed the woods behind our house. People whispered about odd gatherings there. I wanted to ask for help, but the fear of being connected to the rumors held me back. Every creak and whisper grew louder at night. I felt trapped. I was responsible for my father. I opened the cellar door again. My heart thudded, heavy with dread. The air felt thick, charged. The whispers returned, clearer, almost calling to me. One symbol glowed faintly. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just about saving our family name. I wondered if it was already too late. Then a voice broke through the silence, so close it felt like a breath on my neck. "Why are you here?" My body froze. I spun around, but there was no one there. I knew I had to choose. Face my fears, or let whatever was in that cellar take everything from me. I felt the heaviness of the unseen, a weight I couldn't shake. I steeled myself and stepped back into the cellar. The door creaked ominously as it swung shut behind me. This time I clutched a flashlight, the beam slicing through the oppressive darkness. The echo of the whispers seemed to wrap around me, insistent. It felt alive, pulsing with an energy I couldn't understand. The faint light from the flashlight wavered, and I almost turned back when I spotted a long table in the center of the room. Strange items covered it. Jars filled with strange powders, animal bones, and what looked like a massive tome with a cracked spine. I approached cautiously, pulling the book closer. The pages felt cold and brittle. As I flipped through it, I stiffened. The symbols I'd seen carved into the walls matched markings in the book. There was a section on rituals. Some seemed to speak of summoning, but I couldn't focus. The whispers crescendoed into a chaotic murmur, drowning out my thoughts. Then a loud thud came from above ground, followed by the sound of footsteps rushing through the parlor. My heart raced. It sounded like someone was in the house. Was it my father? Panic surged, and I slammed the book shut. I had to check on him. I sprinted towards the stairs, my breath quickening. I felt a presence behind me, a chill creeping down my back. I didn't look back as I rushed up the stairs. Bursting into the parlor, I found my father still slumped in his chair, but he looked different again. His eyes were wide, a look of terror etched on his face. "Father!" I shouted, but he didn't respond. I felt the weight of something heavy in the room. Suddenly, the door to the parlor swung open with a violent force. A figure stood there in the doorway, a man, tall and cloaked in tattered robes. His face was partially obscured, but I could see his mouth twitching, as if he was whispering something I couldn't hear. The room felt charged, electricity crackling in the air. I took a step back, my heart hammering in my chest. "Who are you?" I stammered. My instinct screamed to run, but my feet were rooted to the ground. The man stepped forward, his voice deep and cold. "You have awakened what was meant to stay buried." A wave of nausea washed over me. The walls seemed to close in. I could hardly breathe. The whispers intensified, now a cacophony, filling my mind with dread. I recognized one of the symbols now. It was one I had traced in the cellar, one that seemed to call to me. "Why are you doing this?" I managed to choke out. "Choices have consequences," he replied, his eyes glinting with an unsettling light. "You're not ready for what lies ahead." Then everything went dark. The candlelight flickered out, and in an instant, the whispers fell completely silent. I stood there, frozen in the dark, alone with my fears. A chill crept through the room, and I felt the air shift. I had to make a choice: confront this darkness or let it consume me. I turned to face the closed door, knowing I needed answers. But I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was in that cellar had already begun to take root in my life. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what would come next. I was in over my head, but giving up was not an option. I blinked and tried to adjust to the darkness, but a weight pressed down on me. Something wasn't right in the room. My father still sat in his chair, but there was an unsettling stillness in his posture. I stepped closer, my heart racing. "Dad?" My voice trembled, but he remained silent, his eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and I could see my breath in wispy clouds. I looked around, searching for a source of the chill. A shadow flickered near the edges of the room, but vanished before I could focus on it. I felt my resolve wavering as I backed away. Then I saw it, a familiar symbol glowing faintly on the wall behind my father. My stomach dropped, and I gripped the back of a nearby chair for support. It had been etched deep into the wood, pulsing almost like it was alive. A strange energy surrounded it, pulling me in. "Why are you here?" I whispered, instinctively feeling I was not alone. His voice sliced through the silence. "You called to us." It was a new voice, softer, yet just as chilling. I turned back to see another figure emerging from the darkness, seemingly materializing like smoke. "Who are you?" I asked again, desperation creeping in. The figure was a woman, draped in a gown that billowed like mist. Her features were obscured, but her eyes, dark and knowing, seemed to pierce through me. "We are the keepers," she said, her voice echoing unnaturally. "We guard the secrets of this place. The bloodline you belong to has summoned us." I shook my head, trying to piece together what I had stumbled into. "What do you mean?" "Your father is a vessel. He is the anchor between our world and yours." The woman gestured towards my father, who remained unresponsive. "And you have now become part of this legacy." Suddenly, the whispers returned, rising to a fever pitch. I clamped my hands over my ears, but the noise seeped into my mind. Flashes of images bombarded me: a dark ritual, a sacrifice, a family torn apart by greed. I stumbled back, feeling the room spin, and caught a glimpse of the man's cloak framing the doorway behind the woman. It was as if they were all part of a web that I had unwittingly entered. "What do you want from us?" I shouted, trying to drown out the chaos in my head. Her expression shifted slightly. "To free your father and guide you. But you abandon this path or embrace the truth that lies ahead." My heart raced as I felt the pull of the dark symbol on the wall. I wanted to run, to escape this nightmare, but something in me longed for answers. I had to know the truth, even if it meant confronting whatever haunted my family. Just then, the lights flickered back on. I gasped, my surroundings suddenly bright and normal. My father blinked, looking dazed, and the shadowy figures dissipated as if they had never been there. "What happened?" he murmured, shaking off confusion. "I don't know," I whispered, fear and determination coursing through me. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Something had awakened in me, and I felt the weight of my choices pressing down. As I glanced back at the wall, the symbol gleamed once more, brighter than ever. The truth beckoned, and I felt myself being drawn into its depths. The shadows lurked, waiting for my next move. The next day, my mind was a whirlwind of confusion. I could barely focus on anything besides the glowing symbol and the woman's words. I needed answers. Avoiding the house wasn't an option. It felt like the very walls were whispering my name. After breakfast, I told my dad I was going for a walk. He nodded, still looking a bit dazed. I grabbed the house key and stepped outside. The sun was bright, but it couldn't chase away the shadows that seemed to cling to me. I had to know more about my family's past, and that meant confronting those who might have answers. I headed towards the local library, a place filled with dusty books and whispers of forgotten tales. The librarian, Mrs. Harrow, was an older woman with a keen eye. She had always seemed to know everything happening around town. I approached her desk, heart racing a little more than I expected. "Excuse me, Mrs. Harrow," I said, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. "Can you help me find information about the Bellamy family? I think I need to know more about their history." Her expression shifted slightly, but I caught a glimpse of concern. "Why the sudden interest, dear?" I hesitated, trying to form the right words. "I don't know. I just feel drawn to them." Mrs. Harrow's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. "All right, follow me." She led me to a section at the back of the library filled with books on local history. As I rifled through the volumes, I found snippets of information about strange happenings surrounding the Bellamy family. Paranormal occurrences, whispered secrets, and a mention of a cult. A chill ran down my spine. I had stumbled into something much larger than I had thought. Then I pulled out an old leather-bound book. The spine cracked as I opened it, and I saw the family tree, names spanning generations. And there it was. My great-great-great-grandmother's name was etched alongside a strange symbol that looked strikingly. My heart stopped for a moment. "Mrs. Harrow," I called, urgency spilling out of my voice. "This symbol, what does it mean?" She turned, her face pale. "That's not just a symbol, dear. It identifies those who are part of the legacy." "What legacy?" I asked, feeling the ground shift beneath me. She stepped closer, her eyes darting to the door as if she feared we might be overheard. "It said that the Bellamy family made a pact to protect something ancient. People have gone missing. Rumors abound of a dark ritual at the heart of this family's past." Everything spun. I thought of the woman's words, of my father's distant demeanor. Did we have a role in this? My senses heightened as I realized the weight of the discovery. While trying to absorb this, I caught a movement from the window. A shadow was lurking just outside. My heart raced as I moved to peer outside. What I saw made the blood drain from my face. A figure dressed in dark robes, standing motionless, staring directly at me. I stumbled back, gasping, "Mrs. Harrow!" But when I turned, she had vanished, leaving only the lingering silence of the library. My breath quickened. I had to leave, but that shadow was still watching. The door felt miles away. I made a decision. I needed to confront this horror head-on. With a deep breath, I gathered my courage and headed towards the door. Whatever was waiting outside could no longer be avoided. As I pushed it open, the sunlight hit my face, but it felt less like warmth and more like a spotlight on my unfolding nightmare. I stepped outside, heart pounding. The figure in the dark robes was gone, but the lingering chill of its presence clung to the air. I looked around, hoping to spot any sign of it, but the street was empty. Silence hung heavily, amplifying my unease. What had I just uncovered? The words from Mrs. Harrow played on repeat in my mind. Packed, ancient, missing. The library felt a million miles away as I fumbled for my phone. I needed to call someone, or at least find a friend. But my fingers trembled too much to tap in a number. Just then, a sensation crept over me, like fingers brushing my neck. I turned quickly, scanning the street again. Nothing moved, but the hairs on my arm stood on end. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I glanced toward the library, the door still ajar. A mix of fear and determination rolled through me. Going back in might have been the stupidest decision, but I needed information, answers to questions I didn't even know I had. I stepped back inside. The library was empty, silent and unsettling. "Mrs. Harrow?" I called, straining to hear anything. No answer. My mind raced to the last thing we had discussed, the symbol, the legacy. I made my way back to the section where we had been. The old, leather-bound book was still open, the family tree spread out like a map of some hidden world. Upon closer inspection, I noticed something else on the page. A name. My heart raced again. At the bottom of the family tree, there was another name, scrawled in a different ink. A name I didn't recognize. Ilara Bellamy. Could she be connected to the missing people? Why her? I muttered to myself, flipping pages. An old photograph fell out, yellowed and creased. I picked it up, holding it beneath the dim light. It showed a woman with long, dark hair and penetrating eyes. The resemblance to me was uncanny. That's when I heard it, a soft rustling behind me. My breath caught as I turned around. Mrs. Harrow stood just a few feet away, her expression grave. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice tight. "You need to leave now." "Why? What do you know?" I demanded, emotions spiking. "What's happening?" She shook her head, stepping closer. Her intensity bordered on desperate. "It's dangerous to dig too deep. Your family's involvement, there are consequences. You have to understand." Then, with a swift motion, she pointed behind me. I turned, and there stood the figure again. The dark hooded robes seemed to absorb the light around it. I tried to take a step back, but my legs felt rooted to the ground. A low growl echoed from the figure, and the fear surged through me like a current. Mrs. Harrow whispered, "You need to run, now." Before I could react, the figure lunged. I screamed, adrenaline kicking in, and bolted toward the door. The sunlight welcomed me out into the open, but my heart sank as I realized. The figure followed. I sprinted down the street, glancing back to see the shadow gaining on me. I had no idea where I was headed, but I had to get away. I heard footsteps pounding behind me. Then I spotted the church at the end of the street. Sanctuary. I ran faster, every instinct screaming at me to escape. I burst through the door, slamming it behind me. But as I turned to catch my breath, the air chilled again. Someone was already inside. I froze, my heart racing anew. The dim interior of the church felt oppressive, and I could see someone seated on the worn pews near the altar. The figure was cloaked in shadows, their face obscured, but something about their presence felt oddly familiar. "Who's there?" I managed to choke out, my voice trembling.
The figure shifted slightly, revealing a flash of silver hair. Panic coursed through me. It couldn't be. As I stepped closer, I recognized the face of Old Man Carter, the town's enigmatic historian. He had been a fixture in our community for as long as I could remember, dispensing tales of the past like clockwork. "Lily," he said, his voice a gravelly whisper, "you shouldn't be here. Not now." "Do you know what I've seen? What's happening?" I asked desperately.
Stepping closer, I needed answers, and he was the only one who might provide them. "It's not just the figure that's haunting you," he leaned in, his eyes narrowing. "You are tied to the Bellamys. The past isn't done with you yet." "What do you mean?" My mind raced back to the name I had just discovered. "What about Ilara Bellamy?" His gaze sharpened. "You found her?" He waved a hand almost dismissively, as if shooing away a dark thought. "Many have tried to find her. Very few have returned unscathed." "Returned from where?" I pressed. "What does she have to do with me?" Old Man Carter glanced over his shoulder, as if expecting the hooded figure to emerge from the shadows. "Ilara forged a pact, a terrible one, entwined with the ones who are missing. You share her blood, Lily. That connection puts you in danger." I felt a punch of coldness settle in my gut. This wasn't just about the dark figure or the library anymore. What do I do? I felt raw and vulnerable, exposed in a way I had never experienced before. "Find the sigil," he said urgently. "It's the key to understanding the truth about Ilara's fate and your family's legacy. But be warned, there are forces that will do anything to keep you from discovering it." Just then, the heavy doors behind me rattled ominously. The sound sent chills racing down my spine. The figure was closing in. Old Man Carter's expression morphed into one of concern. "Go! You need to get to the old cemetery. The sigil is hidden there." With a burst of instinct and fear, I turned to flee. My heart hammered in my chest as I dashed for the door. I glanced back only once, catching a glimpse of the figure stepping into the light. It was too tall, too menacing, but most haunting of all was the glint of recognition in its obscured face. Before I got to the exit, I heard the low growl again, dragging hope from my lungs. I pushed through, bursting into the daylight. There was no time to lose. I had to reach the cemetery, and fast. But as I ran, a new terror gripped me. What if the truth was worse than the dark I was escaping? I had to find out. The cemetery loomed ahead, a tangle of twisted trees and crumbling headstones. As I approached, the weight of Old Man Carter's warning settled like a heavy cloak on my shoulders. Was I truly ready to uncover the truth about Ilara Bellamy? The thought made me hesitate, but there was no turning back now. The stories I had heard since childhood echoed in my mind. Ghosts of the Bellamys, lost souls forever tethered to their dark legacy. I slipped through the creaky iron gate, the hinges protesting against my intrusion. The air here felt cooler, almost electric, like the calm before a storm. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, but I forced myself to focus. I needed to find the sigil. I pushed deeper into the cemetery, my sneakers crunching on gravelly earth. An eerie stillness surrounded me, broken only by the rustling of leaves overhead. Every heartbeat felt magnified. I scanned the gravestones, searching for any sign of what I needed. Old names were etched into the weathered stone. Many I didn't recognize, but a few sent shivers down my spine. Suddenly, I heard it, a faint whisper carried on the wind. My heart raced. Was it just my imagination? I paused, straining to catch the words. They felt close, intimate, beckoning. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but I took a step forward. "Lily," the voice called. It was soft, almost melodic, yet laced with urgency. "Who's there?" I cried out, my voice trembling. I glanced around, half expecting someone to step out from behind the trees. I forced myself to remember Old Man Carter's words. There are forces that will do anything. The sound of footsteps startled me, and I spun around, ready to run. Instead, I found myself face to face with a shadowy figure. Just as tall as the one in the church, this one was shrouded in darkness. My breath caught in my throat as recognition flickered. It was the same shape, the same haunting presence, only now it was nearer. "Find the sigil, Lily," it hissed. The voice was raw, vibrating with something I couldn't understand. "What do you want from me?" I shouted back, my fear igniting anger. "Why are you following me?" The figure stepped forward, and the tension in the air shifted. It glanced at the gravestones, mouthing something I couldn't hear. I took a step back, my instincts screaming danger. This wasn't just a ghost. It felt like a warning. In that moment of distraction, something glimmered beneath an old oak tree, twinkling in the fading light. I squinted. My curiosity piqued, despite the looming threat. That spark, was it the sigil? Before I could move, a gust of wind whipped through the cemetery, and the figure vanished. Just like that. I looked around, panic settling in my chest. Had it been a dream, or was it real? That's when I saw it. A crumbled piece of stone poking out from beneath the roots of the tree. My heart raced as I rushed toward it. But the moment my fingers brushed the surface, an electrifying shock coursed through me. Then, everything went dark. I jolted awake, heart racing, gasping for breath. The first thing I noticed was the soft, damp earth beneath me. The chilly air pinched my skin, bringing me back to the cemetery. The world around me was cloaked in shadows, but faint moonlight returned a semblance of clarity. Panic crept in as I looked around, bewildered by what had just happened. I struggled to sit up, ropey roots entwined around my legs, as if they wanted to keep me there. Had I lost consciousness, or was this the effect of whatever I had touched? The fear of being trapped made me push against the roots, breaking free. I stood, shaking off the dirt, adrenaline pushing me forward. I remembered the sigil. What was it? I muttered, scanning the area. The light from the moon barely illuminated the gravestones, casting elongated shadows. I needed to find that stone again. Before I could gather my thoughts, my gaze fell on the old oak tree. The shimmering glint had vanished, replaced by an unsettling darkness. "Lily!" The whisper returned, sharper, more insistent. My heart dropped. The voice was drawing me closer, luring me back to the tree. I clenched my fists and moved towards it, each step heavy with dread. As I approached the tree, I noticed something etched into the bark, a pattern, unmistakable, similar to a drawing I'd seen in Old Man Carter's files. The sigil! I pressed my fingers to the rough bark, trembling as I traced its outline. It felt warm beneath my touch, breathing with an energy that pulsed through my skin. I pulled my hand back, feeling a rush of visions flood my mind. Flashes of the Bellamy family, chanting in the moonlight, faces twisted in ecstasy and despair. Waves of dread crashed over me. The stories Old Man Carter told were true. The Bellamys had made a bargain, one steeped in darkness. "Lily!" The voice peaked in urgency, wrapping around me like a vine. I spun around, hunting for the source, but the shadows were silent now. Feeling the pull of the sigil, I knelt beside the old oak, looking among the roots once more. What else could it conceal? I dug gingerly with my fingers, pulling away the damp earth, my heart drumming against my ribs. Then something hard met my grasp. With a jolt, I unearthed a small, ornate box. It was covered in intricate carvings, a faded gold hue glinting in the dim light. Lifting the lid, I gasped. Inside lay a tarnished locket, and next to it a fragile piece of parchment. I picked up the parchment, unfolding it carefully. Words, elegant but shaky, filled the page. To find the truth, the blood must bind. The meaning sent a chill down my spine. What blood? And why was it binding? Before I could ponder further, I felt the air shift. A figure emerged from the shadows, eyes blazing with fury. "You shouldn't be here," it shouted, and I knew in that instant I wasn't alone anymore. I stumbled back, clutching the box, fear roaring in my ears. "What do you want?" I gasped, trying to steady my breath. The figure stepped forward, revealing the face I'd never forget, the haunting visage from the church. I couldn't run. Not now. Every instinct told me to flee, yet my feet refused to obey, rooted to the spot. I stared into the dark, desperate for an answer, desperate for survival. The figure took another step forward, and I could see now that it wasn't just anger I saw in
their eyes. It was desperation, an almost pleading look tangled with rage. "You need to leave," they shouted, voice trembling as much as their body. I took a step back, hands raised toward them as if to ward off the storm brewing at the edge of their temper. My heart hammered in my chest. "I won't hurt you," I said, though I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. "I just need to know what's happening." The box felt heavy in my hands, a physical reminder of all I'd already uncovered. The figure paused, scanning the ground, before finally settling on me. "The sigil," they murmured, almost to themselves. "It's a beacon. You wouldn't understand." Then they turned sharply to the side, glancing nervously deeper into the cemetery. "They can't find you, not now." I strained my ears, hoping to catch whatever noise they seemed to hear, but the night remained quiet, save for the rustling leaves and my own ragged breath. "Who's they?" I asked, feeling frustration bubble up. "Who are you?" That seemed to hit a nerve. The figure stepped closer, bringing their intensity back to me. "You're in danger. If you've awakened the seal, you've put us all at risk." Their voice dropped to a whisper, as if the very air could betray us. "I'm Henry, and I've been trying to protect you, but this is bigger than both of us." "Protect me?" I laughed, though it came out more hysterically than I intended. My heart was still racing from the thrill of this encounter, confusion spiraling around me. I don't even know what's going on. Henry's expression softened, almost revealing a flicker of kindness amidst the chaos. "The locket you found, it's part of it. The Bellamys tied their fate to this land in blood and bone. You're connected, Lily." My name fell from his lips like a curse, and it sent a shiver down my spine. As the urgency thickened in the air, I glanced down at the ornate box in my hands. "What does any of this have to do with me?" I stammered, anxiety struggling to break free. "You're the last of the Bellamy line." His words felt like a punch to the gut. "If the cult finds you, they'll use your blood to complete their ritual, a cycle they've been trying to finish for generations." I shook my head, the gravity of his revelation almost unbearable. "I can't be," I protested, but doubt laced my voice. They had said the family was cursed, but to be part of that curse, a dark inheritance I never asked for? "Lily, we need to leave." Henry moved closer, the panic in his eyes making my own pulse quicken. "Before they come, they're always watching." As he reached out to tug my arm, I felt an otherworldly chill wash over me. The shadows trembled, flickering like candlelight about to go out. I glanced back towards the oak tree. Was the sigil still glowing? I didn't know. But everything inside me wanted to run. Then, from behind the gravestones, more figures emerged. The air crackled with tension, and my breath caught as a familiar voice echoed in the night. "Lily, you've come back." In that moment, I realized it wasn't just Henry and me left in the cemetery. Darkness surrounded us, and it had answers I was terrified to uncover. The figures lurked in the shadows, their identities obscured, but their intent felt all too clear. "You've awakened the legacy," one of them hissed, their voice a low, haunting rasp. It sent a shiver down my spine. The pulsing energy from the sigil glowed faintly, an invitation and a warning. "Run! Henry urged, pulling me instinctively away from the gathering dark. My heart raced with fear, but his presence grounded me. We have to find the others, those still tethered to the Bellamy legacy. They may know how to break the seal. I nodded, but apprehension weighed heavy in my chest. What seal? What had I truly awakened? I could scarcely comprehend the magnitude of what was transpiring. The truths, the whispers, and now Henry's urgency. We darted between the tombstones, shadows pressing closer, anger and desperation swirling in the air. The figures in pursuit uttered words that sounded like fragmented chants, their intent echoing through the night. A call to something dark, something ancient. "Lily," a voice called, breaking through the cacophony of noise. I turned, recognizing the soft lilt of Alara's name drifting like smoke. The memories of whispered histories flooded me. What was left unsaid? What lured me into this unfolding nightmare? "Don't look back," Henry urged, and I focused on weaving through the maze of graves. The gnawing need for survival propelled me forward. I could feel the sigils pull, a tether to something I didn't fully understand, forcing me to confront it. As we reached the edge of the cemetery, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Shadows twisted into shapes, darting between graves, closing in from all sides. I glanced back just in time to see one familiar figure breaking from the crowd, a woman with long, dark hair and piercing eyes. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice rising above the chants. "You can't run from your heritage!" Henry and I skidded to a halt. It was one of the keepers, yet something about her felt different from the others. She was not shrouded in malice, but confidence. "You will be free, Lily. Your bloodline does not seal your fate." "What do you mean?" I found the courage to ask. "The pact was made long ago, but it can be broken. Trust the sigil. Let it guide you," she urged, stepping closer, although still hesitant. As shadows shifted behind her, the light from the sigil flickered. A deep rumble reverberated through the ground, as though the earth itself had awakened. It sent a tremor through me, a warning that time was running out. "Lily!" Henry shouted, panic rising in his tone. "Listen to her!" The figures behind us grew more restless, chanting louder, their voices merging into a chaotic din that surged through me. I could feel the energy from the sigil pulsing in rhythm with my own heartbeat. I instinctively reached for it, every fiber of my being drawn to its warmth, its promise. "Make the choice, Lily," the keeper urged, her presence acting like a warm blanket in the rising storm of tension. The darkness behind us thrummed with anger, and with a rush of clarity, I made my decision. "I will reclaim my history," I declared, my voice trembling but steady. Following the keeper's gaze, I turned back to the sigil, focusing on its vivid glow. "I am not the Bellamy curse. I'm the choice to break the cycle." The chant erupted into a furious roar. The shadows surged closer, but something shifted in the air. I felt a connection form between the sigil and the darkness, an intertwining of forces that could no longer hold me back. With newfound resolve, I pressed my palm against the sigil, letting its glow envelop me. Energy coursed through my veins, and a surge of whispered voices guided me, weaving stories of resilience and resolve into my essence. The ancient pact faltered under my determined grip. In response, the darkness writhed, snapping and crashing like thunder, agitated by the strength of my defiance. Shadows danced violently before me, faces twisting in rage. Yet, within that chaos, a pathway opened. But in that fleeting moment of victory, I caught a glimpse of the cloaked figures, those who had forged the darkness, driven by the anguish of unfinished business. Answers danced on the edges of consciousness, yet I knew some mysteries lay eternally out of reach. As the sigil burned brighter, I felt the pull of the darkness begin to drain, not into me, but away, retreating before the force of a truth uncovered.
But as the last of the voices faded into whispers, resounding echoes of my family's past began to dissipate. "Lily!" Henry's cry broke through the waning din. "Let's go!" With a final glance at the tapestry of shadows retreating into the night, I turned away. I would leave. I would escape. But doubt trailed behind me like an unwanted specter. Could I truly break the chains binding my lineage, or would the darkness come back once more? Hand in hand we ran, casting our footsteps into the unknown, uncertain of what lay ahead, but aware the echoes of this night would follow long after we departed. As for the truth, some stories remain untold, leaving us to ponder the thoughts that linger just beyond the light. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes, late at night, when shadows stretch across my new walls, I wonder if the keepers still search for me, if the darkness still roams. But mostly, I try not to think about it.